What's up, you all? So, this is going to be part two of the art of hearing. And if you haven't seen part one, I strongly recommend you listen to it, obviously, because this is part two. And my apologies, it's kind of windy outside, so I'm going to try to speak up a little bit. But I feel like for this episode, I need to get super practical with it. The last one was, to me, a little foundational, kind of general, a little basic. And I just kind of want to go over the topic of the art of hearing and the most practical way that I can think of, which is I believe that the way you listen to others reflects how you listen to God. A lot of it has to do with our level of intentionality. And it's not just about if you're hearing or listening to others, it's do you see the person that's there? You know, a lot of us can get to the point where we become solutionists. And it's good to be a solutionist if you got solutions, you got ideas that you can impart to somebody or whatever that you can share. You got something to offer of value, then share it. That's good. But sometimes people just want to be heard. And especially if that person is the one giving you value, the one giving you advice, the one trying to impart to you, are you hearing God in them, God through them? Are you able to hear God? I'm going to go over a couple of ideas that relate to this when it comes to the way we hear others reflects our level of hearing God. One of the things I fell in love with about my wife is that when we would hang out just as friends, she would literally put her phone down. She was really intentional. I love that because at the time I had got to a place where I was like, I need to be a little more intentional about this specific thing, really being present. I'm very introverted. And because I'm very introverted, I've always been a daydreamer. I've always been in outer space. I've always been in my own little world. But I'm like, you know what? I need to get intentional about being present. And it's something I never mastered. And to that point, I had just started learning the art of hearing, which in the sense of being present when you're in the midst of anybody else. And we're always in the midst of God in the sense that we need to acknowledge him in all our ways. And we need to be aware of his presence wherever we go because he's always with us. If I go high, if I go low, behold, he is there. So that being said, I'm just going to go over some foundational things about how you can practice the art of hearing just with your day-to-day interactions. Well, I started it off with being intentional, which is like, put your phone down, turn off the TV, whatever, that kind of thing. And that, in a sense of, let's say, being aware of God's presence, being aware of other people's presence. When you're around other people, are you actually connecting? It's a different thing when you're just communicating with words, you're just sharing words, you're just making noise, you're just there, you're just whatever. But are you actually connecting and acknowledging the fact that this is a whole nother human being that I am with at this moment? Are you available to the person that you say you love? Are you available to them? Are you open to actually connect? Are you just like when they talk and you just, yeah, okay. Or in my case, facts. Are you really listening, or are you just trying to end the conversation? You're just saying what you can you're there, but you're not there. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of thing. So how intentional are you with listening? Are you intentional about hearing that person? And especially when it comes to you're actually there for that person. You're not just like, they're not just venting. It's not just a whatever. Like, you're literally trying to figure out how you can help this person. What are they saying? What are they trying to communicate? Because sometimes we can talk, we can say words, and we can say even our frustrations. And what we're saying we're frustrated about isn't really what we're even frustrated about. We're just using something to communicate the feeling that we have that we're trying to express on the inside. Because you ever come across somebody that's, for instance, mad in traffic. You're mad at somebody because they're in front of you. They got to use the turn signal. In Chicago, I've been in a point where I've had to literally turn right. And someone's honking at me because they don't want me to turn right because they just want to go full speed ahead, and I'm slowing them down because I have to turn. And they're not acknowledging the fact that there are other humans on the road. And like what they have to do with matters. Them getting to work matters, but me going anywhere doesn't. Because you're mad because I have to turn. That's so stupid. But the thing is, there's something deeper. Obviously, it sounds stupid that someone would be mad at you for something so small, but a lot of times it's not the small thing. It's the bigger thing that hasn't been dealt with that's causing the real irritation within one's soul. So listening to somebody and trying to hear what's really going on from within. What are they really communicating right now? I was talking to my friend last night, Jonas, and that dude was dropping major bars for real. I got a clip of it that I'm going to play in a second, but he basically talked about, when I'm listening to somebody, before I speak, a lot of times I'm listening for God to say, okay, am I supposed to say something? What are their intentions? He's listening for their intentions, because sometimes people don't even actually want your advice. They just want your permission to do what they already know they want to do, no matter what you say. You ever wonder why you tell someone something that can save their life or change something or boost them towards their future, but then they just don't take it? And you wonder, why does nobody listen? It's because people, in the end, sometimes people just want to vent, they just want to be heard, and they just want to do what they want to do no matter what you say. So he basically was telling me, keep your pearls to yourself sometimes. Listen for God and listen for when you're supposed to speak and when you're not, because sometimes people don't even care about none of that in the first place. So what are their intentions? What are their motives behind what they're saying, and what are they really saying right now? And I'm gonna play that right here. Just listen.
100%. Sometimes the friends we had from the past, you gotta properly place them in a place to where they can no longer have so much access to you. Because if you try to give them all of the advice to lead them to God, but yet they still want to act on their emotions, that means that their flesh is leading every decision that they make. So something that God told me was, I'm gonna tell you when to speak. So sometimes just because you got the words to say don't mean you need to say them. So you gotta discern that. So what I would tell you without a shadow of a doubt, because I know this from my own personal life, discern what somebody's motives are before you ever open your mouth.
Aside from that, the other side of it is, do you listen to somebody judgingly? We've been on this earth long enough to know that there's a lot of people, not just in the church world, but in the church world, there's a lot of judgy people. And that when they listen to you, they're not really listening to you. Whatever you say, if you even just use a word that they don't like, you're trying to find a way to express yourself, but you use the one word. They're hanging on the one word, but not really hearing what you're actually saying, what's really going on in your life, because they're still stuck on this one little word, because they're judging. They're like, you just use the word that in my traditional, old school, cultural, whatever way that I've been in, like that word is like, why would you use the word freak? Don't you know what freak mean? Like me, I say freak. I'm like, man, I freaking don't like this or whatever, like whatever. And now they're stuck on the word freak, but they're not actually listening to what's actually going on in my life. So they just missed everything that's going on with me because they're just trying to tell me about some behavior modification of, hey, you shouldn't say the word freak. But really there's something way deeper that I'm trying to figure out and deal with and express and need help with. But they totally missed everything because they're not really hearing me, basically. They're not actually connecting. It's surface level. Some people don't know how to get past surface level communication and connection. So there's that. Are you listening judgingly? When you see somebody, are you really seeing them, or are you just judging outer appearance? Can you get past the outer appearance? Can you get to the heart matters? Can you get to the deeper things with them and actually help them be healed and whole from the inside? Or are you just trying to clean them up in the way that to you is appropriate? You know what I'm saying? Because we get so wrapped up in who we're around. Now we're walking in the fear of man because this person's here and, dressing this kind of way, wearing this type of clothes to them means that I'm a sinner, even though I ain't had sex in years, nor have I done anything else. I don't even cuss, but I'm dressed a certain way. And because I'm dressed a certain way, they assume that I'm living a certain way, but really it's just I come from a different generation. And you know what I'm saying? Like there's this generational gap, cultural gap thing, and people get hung on all these little details, but do you really see the person? Sometimes we get so wrapped up and we can see people as demons, but do you see the person? Are we truly trying to cast out their demons, or are we casting out the person? And there's so much to be said about that, but that's one way people listen. They just literally listening so that they can judge, because that's what they experience. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, when I first started going to church, I don't really cry like that in the first place, but I was going through some stuff and I cried in church. Somebody took me into their car and had a talk with me, and these are the words they were literally using. They were literally telling me how useless I was, how worthless I was, how I was not a man because I cried. Back then, I didn't even know that Jesus wept. I didn't even know that verse. Jesus wept. Jesus cried. There was a time when Jesus cried. I didn't even know that much. But I was in church. It was an emotional time, going through an emotional season, and I had shed a tear. And someone Use that opportunity. All they saw was tears, and they said, "Hey, you're not even a man. You worthless. You useless. Da 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 da. You'll never be anything." That was what they got out of it. They didn't see me. They didn't see anything. It's like disgusting for real. What do you listen for? What do you see when you see the person? When Jesus, when he said, "I saw you under the fig tree," guess what spoke to him? He said he was under the fig tree, probably talking about, God, do you even see my plight? Do you even see my people? Like, we going through all kind of stuff. The Romans are here. Do you even see us? And guess what Jesus said? He spoke to his heart cry. He said, I see you. I saw you under the fig tree. Like, do you see the person? Are you hearing them? Or like, what are you listening for? It matters. It really matters. Because how can you make a real impact on people if you don't care enough about people to see or hear the people? You know what I'm saying? It just don't make sense. You got to be able to connect. The other thing is, do you listen selfishly? When you listen selfishly, you're only listening for your next argument. You're only hearing what they're saying to the point where you know what you're going to say next to rebuttal whatever they said, because whatever they said doesn't matter, because you don't value the person enough to value anything they're going through or what they're saying. So when I'm hearing them, I'm just like, well, nah, because da da da, and then da 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 da, and then no, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, and then everything they say, I'm right, you're wrong. No matter what you say, you don't got no points, because I'm just listening for whatever I got to clap back at you for. How do you listen? Do you see people? Do you hear people? Do you love people? See, Jesus was moved with compassion when he saw them, and he noticed they were sheep without a shepherd. Do we love God and love his people enough to actually hear them or see them and hear their cries? The next thing that I want to say, I don't want to be too long because I'm actually just on my lunch right now. So I'm going to try to cut it a little short. I might talk about it a little bit later. But are you listening for God in the conversation? When the Bible says, this is what I believe, when the Bible says that Jesus only spoke what he heard the Father say, and he only did what he saw the Father do, a part of that means that he was sensitive to the Spirit of God and how he was moving within the situations he was in. He knew that he wasn't in places by accident, that there was divine appointments and connections that were supposed to be made, and he was sensitive to what God was doing and what God wanted to do in the lives of others, because he just cared enough to pay attention. It's that simple. So for instance, years ago when I was working third shift, there was this old janitor lady. She used to always try to talk to me and stuff. Third shift, it wasn't like much going on at all. I could literally just sit there and write rap lyrics all night, and it was cool. And she used to try to come in and talk to me. I had my headphones on, I'm listening to music, I'm trying to write, and she's getting in the way of that. So I'm like, here she comes. She gonna try to talk to me about something that I don't even know what she's talking about half the time. But this is an old lady, and I'm a nice person, so I'm gonna try not to shrug her off. But I'm also waiting for her to be done so I can finish my amazing rap lyrics. But one night, finally, I realized, I'm like, you know what? I for the first time, I really look her in the eyes, and I could see a certain pain and a certain thing going on within her soul. And I'm like, she not just talking. She talking about some stuff that like don't kind of like irrelevant. It's kind of random. She just talking. But I see that there's something in there that she really actually wants to discuss. There's something in there that she really wants to express, that she actually wants to communicate. And I started hearing her finally through all the random words like, oh yeah, I was doing laundry and just like small talk, right? But I started really actually hearing her behind the surface level conversation. I started actually connecting with her heart, and I was like, she needs something. She has a need. And for some reason, night after night, she feels like she needs to pull on me for whatever that is. And I know it's not me, it's God. So now I'm hearing as the Father is telling me and guiding me on what to say. So lo and behold, I start ministering to her, and she starts crying. We give each other hugs, and I never connected with her before because like I said, I was literally, to be honest, I was just ready for her to be done talking every single time she opened her mouth, because I just wanted to write. I just wanted to be distracted on my iPhone. Just wanted to be distracted because I just wanted my shift to be over because I had to stay up all night. And I was just passing the time. I finally took just a second to actually connect with her and to look at her and say, she matters. And I know I'm not the only one. But when you could take a second to actually hear somebody and see somebody and not just be trying to say whatever you can to be done with the conversation, stuff happens. Stuff happens. You know what I mean? People have needs, and you have God in you, the hope of glory. So why should I ignore somebody? So I try my best. I am far from perfect. I try my best to try to be conscious of that, because that's a part of acknowledging God in all your ways. You're being aware of his presence. You're walking in the spirit. If you're walking in the spirit, how can you disregard people who also have needs that only God's spirit can fulfill? So basically though, my whole conclusion is how you listen to others, it does reflect the way that you listen to God. You know what I'm saying? Are you just hearing him, but you're never actually listening to him? One of my friends, Philip Watson, used this analogy, and I love it. I use it all the time. He said, if your mama tells you to go to the store to pick up some milk and you don't do it, and then she comes back in the room and is like, you didn't hear me. And he's like, no, I did hear you. You said to go get milk. If you don't do it, she's going to tell you, no, you didn't hear me. Because if you heard me, you would have did it. The same thing with God. If God told you something 2, 3, 4 years ago, and you're like, well, God told me, and my mom Michelle, just said this on Sunday last weekend. She said, she hears all the time, people like, well, God told me that years ago. Well, why did you never apply it to your life if he told you? And that's how a lot of us are. We hear something, but we never actually apply it, and we never actually walk in it. It's a walk of faith. You know what I'm saying? You don't just hear stuff and just, like, especially when God is talking, we got to have the fear of the Lord. We got to have enough reverence and honor to actually put into practice what he said. That's wisdom. When you have knowledge, he speaks to you and gives you knowledge of something that he wants you to act on. Once you apply the knowledge, it becomes wisdom and understanding. You won't have understanding until you actually apply the knowledge and walk in wisdom. So how are you hearing God? And are you listening for God in the conversations that you have? One of my friends, Cedric Anderson, he does that all the time. And I don't know if he's ever said this, but I notice him doing it. When he's listening to someone, he's listening to someone because he's conscious of the fact that God may be moving within that regular everyday conversation, and he's listening for that just in case so he doesn't miss it. But you can't do that if you're just trying to be done with the conversation, or you're not even listening to someone because you're just ready to clap back whatever they say. Nah, I got the answers, and whatever you're saying, let me son you, let me school you, whatever. But whenever we're able to really conversate and actually listen to someone to understand where they're coming from, and even if it differs from our point of view, and then we can come with a productive and fruitful conversation. It doesn't just become some type of argument, it becomes fruitful. And that, especially when you're conscious of the fact that God may be wanting to work in this person, or he may be wanting to work in you. If someone's telling you something of wisdom, but because you just want to do what you want to do, no matter how it may affect your future, and you're just driven by emotions and whatever it is, and you're confused, and you may miss it because you're not listening. Because God may be speaking through somebody, and you're just looking for somebody to tell you what you want to hear. And that's when the Bible says that the people had itching ears. You don't want to just have itching ears. That means you don't want to be obedient to the word of the Lord. You just want to do what you want to do. A certain level of spiritual maturity is developed by listening and heeding the voice of God, and even heeding the voice of wise counsel. You develop maturity in that. But if you don't grow for years and years, you got to check the kind of words you keep and the kind of seeds that were sown, and you gotta measure and discern between the lies and the truth, because the truth shall set you free. And that's what this whole podcast is all about. So blessings, y'all. I hope that was a blessing. I don't like to keep it, like, make everything so super spiritual. Like, that's very practical, but I think it's a great place to be when you're talking just to whoever, your mama, your daddy, your friend, your brother, your sister, whoever it is, just a stranger, and you really are paying attention. But don't just do that. Also, like, listen to others and what they may be saying to you as well. Listen for God. That's the best place to be. Listen for God in your conversations that you're having with others. Blessings.